No, we were asking whether or not those two matrices can be multiplied to each other. Okay. This matrix is the first one, and this matrix is the second one. Verifying if multiplying matrices is possible. It says count the number of elements in the row of the first. Can somebody please do that for me? How many elements do you see in the row of the first? Anybody? How many elements are there in the row of the first? Right, 1, 2. Count the number of elements in the column of the second. How many elements are there in the column of the second? One, 2. If the two counts are equal, then multiplication is possible. Yes, multiplication is possible. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yes, multiplication is possible. Okay. Verifying the size of the product. Take note that the product will always have the same number of rows of the first and number of columns of the second. So how many rows the first matrix have? How many rows are there in the first matrix? 1, 2, 3. So the product will have 3 rows. How many columns in the second matrix? So the product will be a 3 by 2. The product will be a 3 by 2. So multiplication is possible because 1, 2 in the row of the first, 1, 2 in the column of the second. So multiplication is possible. So when you have the matrices themselves, you can count the number of elements in the row of the first. If you have the sizes, you look at the 2 inner numbers. When you have the sizes, you look at those 2 inner numbers. Okay, and the 2 outer numbers will give you the size of the matrix when you have the size of the matrices themselves. A 6 by 4 and a 4 by 2, yes, because 4 and 4. And the answer will be a 6 by 2. But if you have the matrices themselves, count the number of elements. All right, remember it says count them. Count the number of elements in the row of the first. 1, 2. Count the number of elements in the column of the second. 1, 2. Yes, multiplication is possible. What is the size? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2 is going to be a 3 by 2. Okay, so please remember that. We're looking for 3 by 2 for our product matrix. So we go to equations, put our bracket, and we want a 3 by 2 in this bracket because we know our answer will have 3 rows and 2 columns. There it is, look at 3 by 2. 1, 2, 3 rows, just like the first. 1, 2 columns, just like the second. Now, multiplication. Just to get this number, what do I have to multiply and add? Can somebody please tell me what do I have to multiply and add just to get this number? What times what plus what times what? Let me help. I'll start with the 5. It must be 5. 5 times -2 plus 1 times 1. No, is row by column. Row by column. It's not a row by row. Right, row by column. 1 times 3. 1 times 3. Because that is why we count the number of elements in the row of the first, number of elements in the column of the second. That is why you have that rule. The number of elements in the row of the first, column of the second, So it's a 5 by -2 and 1 by 3 across and down. Okay, right. Row of the first, column of the second. Always bear that in mind. To get this number there now, since we're on the top row, so we have to go back with that same 5 and 1. So 5 times what? So it's that same row, but now we're on the second column now. 5 times 1 plus we're using that same row, you know. Right, 1 times negative 4. We haven't finished with that row yet. 1 times negative 4. So across and down. So now we are finished with that first row. We finished with that first row. So we're coming down to the second row. So now we're going to the 3 and the 0 now. So 3 times what? Three times 3 times negative 2, exactly. 3 times negative 2. Don't be afraid to say what you're thinking, you know. 3 times negative. So it's like you have to repeat in certain things, but you have to go to the order. So now we come down in the second row. So we're going to the second row. But since we're in the first column, we have to go back to using negative 2. 3 times negative 2. But remember, it's row and column. So it's 3 times negative 2 plus what? 0 times 3, exactly. 0 times is 3, row and column. Now we're still in the second row, so we come in there now. So we have to go back to that same 3 again. So what do I do now? 3 times what? 3 times 1 and 0. 0 times negative 4, exactly. So we get in the gist of it, right? 3 times negative 4. And if you notice those numbers on the other end, they are almost the same. So now we have through that second row. So we're coming down to the third row now. So what times what? What number times what number? Negative 1 times negative 2, right? Plus 2 times 3, exactly. 2 times 3. So now we come in there now. Remember, we're still on the third row, so we have to go back to the negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 times 1 plus 2 times negative 4. Exactly. And we just put that in our calculator. Let me just copy this, put an equal sign there. And so I still get the gist of it. So just do this one time in your calculator. I just press Control X, Control V. That's negative 7. Control X, Control V. That's 1. Well, that's 0 times 3 is 0, so that is negative 6. And that's 0, so that's 3. 3 ones are 3. And without no further ado, Control X, Control V, hit, and Control X, Control V, negative 9. Okay, so that's how you multiply matrices.